right now.
Here. Here's a paper wall if you need it.
All right, should we make a call to order right now? We'll make a call to order. All right. Would you mind doing the roll call, Brandon?
Certainly, we have to do Alton excused. Nate Wright, member Reisner,
Here.
member Dunno is excused. Member Mood,
Here.
member Bauman. Member McNeely,
Here.
member Gregory.
That's me.
Member DeGaia.
Hitting my speakers off.
Member Trevor. The committee, member Cindy.
Turn it on. Yeah, too.
Member James.
Yeah.
Member MetroPlan staff. Executive Director Morley is excused. David Wessel.
Here.
Tammy Suho-Vieco, that is me, I am here. Mendia Gonzalez, here.
Here.
Sandra Tabell, here. Kim Austin, here. Corey Cooper,
Here.
and Melanie Nabel. Jesus. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, public comment. Do we have any public comment, members of the public? This is Charlie Wilson. He's our lead design engineer at the county. I've asked him to start coming to the meetings. Because maybe in the future might transition him up over into the TAC role, get him trained up. Anybody else? Yeah.
I'm Sydney Antal, and I'm here in place of Michelle for the last CAP presentation.
Cool. Is there anybody online that has any comments?
I see nothing in the chat.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, approval of minutes. Looking for a motion to approve the Technical Advisory Committee regular meeting minutes from April 23, 2025.
Move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Got a
Is there a second?
motion? I'll second. Jeremy seconds. All in favor of approving the Technical Advisory Committee regular meeting minutes of April 2023, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It sounds like it moves forward unanimously.
1 moment.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did we get Jess McNeely as present?
I did.
Online? Thank you.
Yep.
All right, moving to item B, consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routed in nature and have already been budgeted or discussed by executive board. So item number 1 is the fiscal year 2026 Title VI and Civil Rights Plan. Staff recommendations. Staff recommends that the TAC recommend to the board to adopt the fiscal year 26 Title VI plan. Can I have somebody make a motion? Say, looking for a motion.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, consent agenda, basically, we just ask if anybody wants to discuss those items.
yeah.
If they don't, we can just approve the entire consent agenda.
Thank you, Dave. So, in the consent agenda, is there anything that anybody wants to pull for discussion? The Title V Civil Rights Plan or the fiscal year 26, fiscal year 27 Unified UPWP Unified Planning Work Program.
Call for the motion.
Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
I will move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
You get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the consent agenda items as presented, say aye.
Aye.
The opposed? It's like that moves forward unanimously as well. General business, item 1. Consider fiscal year 2026 budget. A recommendation, staff recommend, TAC recommend to the board adopt the fiscal year 26 budget as drafted.
Mr. Chair, presentation on the budget. Next slide, please. Here's a quick overview. The salaries have increased 4% because of longevity raises and results of a Mountain compensation study. Our operating expenses are down 52%, primarily because of a one-time payment for tenant improvements to the downtown connection center. We will not experience that this next fiscal year. And then we're decreasing some of our public outreach due to some of the activities like the VRU and other things that are decreasing. Travel and training is reduced. We had a grant that provided capacity and that for travel and training, that's wrapping up. As far as projects are concerned, we're going to have some carryover for West 66, $44,000 in data collection, primarily for traffic counts. Trip diaries listed there, but it's primarily traffic counts. $450,000 has been awarded. Whoops. There we go.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out why it's not showing
Oh,
online.
we're not sharing it online. Well, I'll continue to speak and they can hear the presentation if they can't see it. $450,000 for safe routes to school infrastructure funding, $500,000 for the safe routes and roads for all grants, with the remainder delivered over the 4 years. So that's the large $2.1 million grant. And then we have about $300,000 for transit planning from 5305E. A change from a previous budget presentation is we're front loading our carbon reduction program funds. In discussions with ADOT and at the national level, we're seeing that this program is probably not long for the future. When reauthorization comes around, we want to make sure those funds are obligated. So what that does is result in a 5-year fund balance deficit of about $50,000 in the last year, 2031. Not too concerned about that. We have several means within the intervening years to resolve that. And in September 2026, the current funding authorization expires. New funding should come in. And so we're going to have to make adjustments to those out years anyway. Next slide. So you can see the distribution of our expenses. The bulk is in projects, but not far behind is our salaries for total expenditures of $2.6 billion. Next slide, please. And you can see the circle down on the bottom right of this table out the 5th year, where that fund balance declines in terms of the total. It says total surplus in the line, but it's actually showing us a negative $50,000 total. And you can see we have the CRP called out, not explicitly in this table. Okay. So we're recommending that the TAC recommends this to the board for adoption. And maybe you'll go back to the previous slide and see if there's any questions about the budget.
Thanks, Steve. Is there any questions or discussion What else I have on the budget?
One quick question. So the salaries, that was your retirement, but not replacement in there, why it goes down and doesn't come back up?
Right.
I think we talked about that in one of the previous meetings. Okay.
Yeah.
Can't replace Steve.
Yeah.
And replaceable.
I'm expendable, but not replaceable.
That's right.
So again, Mr. Chair, we're looking for the recommendation.
Any other questions or discussion items? All right, then, can I get a motion for the TAC to recommend the board adopt the fiscal year 2026 budget as drafted and presented?
I'll go again. Oh, I need that back up
You're
there.
good, you're good. Hold on.
I need that back up there.
Technical pivot pause.
Yeah.
Apologies.
We're trying to share the presentation with the folks online. And by we, I mean.
Okay. I will make a motion
I can see.
that we recommend that the TAC recommend the board adopt FY 2026 budget as drafted.
All right, thank you, Paul. Thank you. Second? I'll second. Thank you, Jeremy. Okay, all in favor of the motion for staff to recommend the TAC recommend the board adopt the fiscal year 2026 budget as drafted, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries forward. Route 66 operational assessment, BOE update. Mandy, you want to give us an update on that?
I would love to give you an update on that. Thank you. And just to verify for the folks online, are you able to now see the presentation?
Yes.
Thank you, Jess. Appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you, Vice Chair and members of the TAC. Since our last meeting, we have had the PAG come together for a second part of our workshop earlier this month. The goal was to review funding and partnership opportunities and to evaluate the preliminary recommendations based on this, based on the findings from those potential opportunities. So today I will run through those findings fairly quickly. They are listed in your staff report along with some of the recommendations coming from the PAG on those items as well. And then after we get through that component, I'll show you and discuss the full build out for the corridor along with the project advisory group's recommendations. All right, so we evaluated the project recommendations across 12 different federal funding sources. Of those 12, these 6 rose to the top. You know, I will note that the bottom 3 are kind of a long game, if that's the direction that we would like to pursue. However, these first 3 options, there is some potential for this project to qualify for these funding opportunities. Obviously, the first 2 are active transportation focused, and so those would only really be based on if the Foots Trail is pursued and potentially any crossings to transit. The RAISE or soon to be build grant is another potential option, although the probability of us being successful in that is low just because our region did recently get one awarded. So, you know, these are the types of conversations that we had with the group. The PAG isn't necessarily recommending any specific federal grants for the city to apply to, but, you know, of course, we had very robust conversations about implementation. So they do recommend that implementation move sooner rather than later, and we'll talk a little bit about kind of our options for doing that here with funding. Essentially, the bottom line is that there's not a lot of opportunities for federal funding at this time. So the PAG is really recommending the city revisit the regional priorities. As you know, we have our P2P regional, oh my gosh, nomination. We also have our grants planned out over the strategic grants process. And then there's also the RTAC bill. So there's opportunity for those conversations internally and with this group if we want to pull this this West Route 66 project up to the top and make it a priority for us. The second recommendation is to pursue an AZ Smart Fund to conduct up to 30% planning. The purpose of this is there's a lot of uncertainties along that roadway, not only the uncertainties of growth and build out development, but we also know that there's challenges with slopes and grades and et cetera. So being able to get to 30% for the full build out will then help to identify or prioritize the PAG recommendations in the future. Obviously with that, the city would have to commit to applying to a federal grant and of course commit to meeting that match requirement for that grant. So once again, very internal conversation with the city on their prioritization of this project along with the others in the region. And then of course, you know, we know that there's changes in the transportation infrastructure package coming soon. So, you know, we obviously recommend reviewing this project under those new criteria here in the future. All right, so developer partnerships. So essentially we did some very rudimentary math, came up with some potential numbers for, you know, what would be potential offsite funds if all of the currently underdeveloped or vacant lots were developed. And, you know, we came up with this estimated $1.1 million for that. And in the context of the corridor as a whole, that just is not a substantial enough amount to really leverage these recommendations moving forward. So we also went ahead and did some other math, which will be captured in our final document as well, just more for reference as this project continues to evolve over time. So essentially, because of that uncertainty of development, there were big conversations around continuity of investments as well. Right now, in some places, you know, it's really based on the development that's happening, when it happens, where it happens, and doesn't always connect facilities. You know, we have that pinch point in the roadway where it goes from, you know, wide, and then obviously it's pinch point. We have missing sidewalks in between. So a big concern for the PAG was how do we keep our investments continuous across the corridor. So a few things that came up and that will be in the recommendations is considering in lieu fees when applicable, just so it allows for a little bit more flexibility in those investments from developers. Would like the city to explore ways to distribute those developer contributions strategically. And then those last ones kind of getting back to that continuity component, because we have seen this with the current development on there that it doesn't always include the already identified planned projects for that area. For example, a separated bikeway in front of, I think it was the
Federal
courthouse. Thank you. Thank you. So as edge improvements are negotiated, we wanted to ensure that those improvements include any of those planned facilities as they are already documented. And if those planned facilities are not included, then the city should consider funding those with those 419 funds to implement those, keep that continuity there. Plus, it does continue to leverage the tax funding that's available. All right. ADOT partnerships and other funding considerations. So with ADOT right now, currently, you know, our opportunities are limited to none. However, we do recognize that there is a coming up real quick potential to leverage those 419 funds with supporting the build out of that pinch point to the west of Woodlands Village during the ADOT pavement preservation project. So that's the one that's identified at this time, highly recommended, because any improvements that go up the road, you know, once again, keeping with that continuity throughout. Other funding considerations, these are not recommendations from the PAG. These are just going to be captured in the document as options through the creative local match paper. We've talked about a few of these. There's been some interest from some council members, board members, et cetera. So just wanted to bring this in as an opportunity to consider community facility districts or transportation reinvestment zones. So before I move on, I just wanted to see if there's any questions regarding partnerships and funding at this time. Now for all you data nerds. All right, so at the last PAG meeting, NAU presented the findings from the transmodeler microsimulation, and they looked at intersections along the corridor. They evaluated both signals and roundabouts at Woody Mountain Road and Thompson. So before we get into some of those findings, what that looks like, we have some findings here listed, and a few reminders. So obviously, our intent with this was our first time engaging with transmodeler on this type of project. So, our intent was really to show that a future level of service and those different intersections and configurations. We discovered that there are some limitations to this tool. Just as a reminder, for all of the modeling through this process, we took the regional plan scenario E, which is the preferred, and then we added 35% growth to that to account for that uncertainty of the growth along and near the corridor and how that might impact movement along a corridor. So they did their first run at that 35% and the model got to gridlock. And like I said, giving out those false inputs. So one of the solutions that we wanted to try was to employ this breakpoint analysis. So adding in 5% growth over time to see when the road becomes inoperable. And essentially that's a 25%, and I'll show you that here in just a second. But essentially what we're getting at here is, there certainly is more need for analysis that couldn't be done in this scope or within this project at this time. It was really interesting to give transmodeler a whirl. I'm sure we have some more things to learn about it ourselves and its functionality for in the future, but at least we learned some things through this process. All right, so here is one of the still images from NAU, and this was taken at the Milton green light signal right after 5:30 p.m. So the top is current conditions, right? Okay. Current conditions, 15% growth and then 25% growth. And as you see at 25%, it's showing the gridlock occurring starting at Milton, I should say, the intersection. And that is unfortunately the contributor to current and future backup along West Route 66 and is really leading to those inoperable conditions and extensive delays for folks. And here's just a graph so you can kind of see how it compares the signals versus the roundabouts. So we're comparing VMT, VHT, and delay. Within, at the bottom, you see the 5% growth increments, excuse me. As mentioned previously, the signals and roundabout outputs are performing about the same under transmodeler, but there's, variability in the run. So it makes it a little hard to come to any conclusions on what this exactly is telling us. So the PAG recommendation from here in terms of moving forward is to conduct further analysis, which also would include a warrant analysis, and that would better inform priority investments for the intersection improvements. Dave, did I miss something or did I say something wrong?
Oh, no.
It looks like I saw the face. I was like, oh no.
No. You're doing fine.
Okay.
And we are seeing if we can squeeze a little money out of another project to get some warrant analysis done by NAU. So we're waiting to hear back from another contractor on an invoice, and if the money appears, we'll get the warrant analysis done.
All right, so next up are the concepts. Before I jump forward, any questions on transmodeler that I will defer to Dave on?
We'll talk a little bit more about it.
Okay,
The
that's true.
stuff
That's
as
true.
well. But, yeah.
Good, all right. Okay, so here is our big picture. So these recommendations are based on Blueprint 2040, the Active Transportation. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Back to the last one.
Yeah.
For the signal analysis, do you know if NAU did optimization on the signal, or were they running timing plans that coordinated with the rest of the network?
So they, after each growth increment, they, optimized a coordinated signal from West 66 to Milton and I think up to Butler. So that would be the predominant flow, but trying to improve things on 66, knowing Milton might have been the one that would have been optimized normally.
Okay, that's good to know.
All right. So like I said, this is the big picture for the corridor. This is based on Blueprint 2040, the Active Transportation Master Plan, and Flagstaff Urban Mobility Study. We also included the preferred roundabouts identified at Woody Mountain and Thompson. Segments 1 and 2 are just shoulder improvements per the ATMP. Based on the modeling results and the concurrence with the PAG, that the Milton intersection is the primary culprit that will negate any widening investments. One of the conversations came up is spending the tax funds on a project that will reach saturation and offer no congestion relief at some point in its life be a wise investment. So just putting that out there as a talking point from the PAG in terms of this full build out. And then we do have a breakdown of the costs for this full build out. We wanted to put together the a la carte menu for y'all. So this allows some flexibility in terms of identifying any priorities or if development does happen sooner rather than later, what opportunities are there to leverage that. So we're at just under 32 million for the full build out. As with all projects, there certainly are challenges.
Could you go back to the
Sure.
slides?
Yeah.
Sorry.
2, this one
Yeah.
or
One more.
one more? Okay.
Is that, so the two symbols at, and I think that's Woodlands Village and Reardon, are those roundabouts at those two locations? And
So we
right
can,
at the line of segment 2 and 3,
so roundabout
right, that's roundabout.
and one on top.
Oh, that's one.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I had the intersections mixed up.
All right, obviously challenges are costs, the uncertainty of, whether it's those developer partnerships or federal funding here in the future. Timeliness, which I'll talk a little bit more about in the PAG recommendations here in a second. As stated, we need some more analysis on intersections when trying to figure out, what will perform better over time. As I mentioned, does this project or this recommendation at this point doesn't seem to sustain over time with the intent of the 419 funding. So just continuing that conversation. Obviously, our biggest challenge is Milton Butler intersection, the big banana, I like to call it, and then continuing to work with ADOT on getting those crossings and signals figured out for the corridor, especially to support that future transit.
So one thing I'd like to bring up, because that's sustained demand over time, we're looking at peak hour traffic volumes. We're not necessarily looking at traffic volumes over an entire day. So the argument of, does it make sense to make an investment if it doesn't meet the demand of peak hour? I don't think that's a great argument because maybe it doesn't meet the demand of peak hour, but it meets the demand of a lot of off-peak hour.
If I could add to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, you're right, and at the same, and in terms of that congestion curve, those last few cars as you approach peak hour are particularly damaging, if you will, or impactful. And at the same time, when we looked at trip diary survey results, we're seeing, we hit peak and we don't drop much off, and then there's a little midday peak and then a little PM peak. So that margin is getting less throughout the day, but it's still there.
All right.
Then I also think it provides better connectivity to some of the alternate routes that you can take, like Woodlands Village, or if you're in the Railroad Springs neighborhood to I-40 to get around the downtown area.
Thank you. All right, so here is an updated map of the PAG's fiscally constrained recommendations. I'll just go ahead and zoom in here. Nothing has changed from the last meeting when you saw the preliminary map, with a small addition of the pinch point over on that far right side. Once again, these recommendations from the PAG are responding to that current, lack of partnerships and opportunities, funding opportunities to leverage the tax funding. In this recommendation here, when asked what these recommendations, or what's the priority of these recommendations in terms of getting them, implemented in a timely manner, the PAG said all. I was like, well, that's not helpful. So we got them to narrow it down a little bit more. And really what came to the top for the PAG was the Foots Trail. And that had a few different reasons for that. Because it doesn't only meet the current needs, there's definitely will meet the future needs for the community. Partly because there's so much uncertainty in the growth, kind of thinking about that continuity of connectivity throughout that corridor, that this could be a temporary improvement that could maybe sustain time depending on how things flow out there at the end of the day. So let me see. Great.
Amanda,
Okay.
if I could.
Yeah, sorry.
Why don't you walk through this?
Oh, sure.
Going,
Yeah, so sorry.
going, west to
Yeah.
east in terms of all the improvements that we have up there.
Planners pointing. All right. All right. So we have a signal at Woody Mountain, one at Railroad Springs, and one at Thompson. The selection of the signal was obviously they're more cost effective than a roundabout. So that allowed for investments in other projects to be done. This particular signal is really a response to both the neighborhood. We've received a lot of comments about people trying to get in and off of Railroad Springs, but additionally, we're having transit all around this area. And if there's not a crossing somewhere here in the middle, people are just going to dart across, right? We are recommending widening from Railroad Springs to Thompson. So this will taper in, and then filling in that pinch point. We have an asphalt, as per the dotted line, Foots Trail recommendation. This ideally would be built all the way up against right of way. So that way it allows for expansion, any other future improvements as well. And then there's a recommendation for a concrete Foots Trail extension from Woodlands to Yale, just to provide better connectivity to Yale so folks can get down to NAU and that south shopping area as needed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Like, you guys don't know this map already? Come on. All right, so our cost breakdown, obviously we're trying to keep this within what is available in 419 funds, which is 10.8. We are a little bit over at 11.7. Once again, the only thing that has changed from the last time you saw this was the addition of the pinch point being improved upon with just the north side. The south side is taken care of by the courthouse. So that's what's been added. So we're at 11.7 currently. Of course, we continue to have challenges as well, as I talked about, signals, roundabouts, the spacing in between, how they may impact each other. That really needs to be figured out ahead. Determining those best locations, especially knowing that transit's coming in. So where can we put in those crossings and connectivity to those spots? And then, of course, intersection control, any intersection control, or, going back to those crossings as well, and working with ADOT through that process of how to implement those. All right, so these are the recommended next steps based on the fiscally constrained recommendations. So elevate this project as a regional priority. As mentioned, we know there's challenges with drainage and slope, et cetera. This, getting this project, into the hopper, hopefully get it talked about, get it up there, start getting it prioritized. They would like to see the city pursue design and engineering with that 30% plan with the AZ Smart Fund. And then there was also a recommendation to review the 419 funding balance. I guess the 10.8 was a forecasted number. From what I've heard from some folks is that number has exceeded in other projects what was forecasted. So there is the possibility that there's a little bit more change in that bucket, potentially, but should be evaluated. Other recommendations that have just kind of come out through this process, obviously we've had a lot of conversations, went through a lot of modeling and data. So just pointing out, I think we pretty much touched on all these in some way in this presentation, but talking about those in lieu fees, a preference for that moving forward. Looking at connectivity standards. This is really in response to one of the first scenarios that we modeled, and it performed really well for the corridor. And so it shows its value for that, access management and then speed management. And then lastly, for this component, we did want to talk a little bit about the Safe Streets Master Plan. Obviously, the master plan is being completed here in terms of the scope pretty soon, but there are some opportunities through the master plan that can help further West Route 66. So we are hopeful, that the SSMP will look at that influence of the Woody Mountain TI for the future, identify those connectivity issues as we had seen promising results. We assume that there might be some additional guidance on future transit along that route. And then once again, big banana, address any of those needs or opportunities for the intersection of Milton and 66 that can alleviate some of that traffic on 66. So I have one more slide after this. So I just want to see if there's any questions or comments before I move. Okay, so many of you participate on the PAG or have assigned staff to participate. Essentially, they are the trusted committee to identify the best corridor options for West Route 66. So I do want to take a moment to thank everybody who's participated, or if you assign somebody, and recognize all the good work that has been done to get us here today. So just briefly, obviously we had to identify these immediate future needs. The group came up with some policy-based criteria that helped us focus in on our final recommendations. We looked at compliance with 419 and being fiscally constrained given the limited options on what we learned. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of reflection in this document as well. We had a lot of challenges to report on and a lot of ideas that we just couldn't touch on in this planning effort. The PAG is currently reviewing various documents that will be then combined into the final report. So that will be provided to the TAC for review prior to the September meeting. So we're happy to take any comments or feedback at that time. I'll of course send out an email with that link to the final version that the PAG has reviewed and offer a timeline for any comments from y'all before we move into September. I do want to mention, should a different or secondary TAC recommendation form after the review of this document, that will not negate the PAG's recommendations. It will be submitted in addition to with the document. So just want to put that out there, but hopefully everybody is on board with where the PAG has brought us today. So last thing I just wanted to mention, because there were some conversations this topic got briefly brought up at the last meeting, and then Vice Mayor Sweet had asked as well, how does the city use this document at the end of the day? That's really up to the city. You can consider it it is an assessment, it's a study, it's kind of a first step in my mind. So it's helping to, further those conversations and give some direction. if you're like, yes, this is what we want the corridor to look like at the end of the day, then maybe that's an adoption process or an amendment to regional plan or what have you. So just wanted to make that clear. That's really up to the city to decide how they want to move forward with this document at the end of the day. But of course, we're all here to help and support as we can. And that's it. Any last questions? Yes.
Question. So one of the TAG recommendations to elevate as a regional priority. Can you kind of dive into that a little bit? Why is that being recommended as a regional priority now over what we went through in the strategic advance of 180 and how is that going? If that does move forward as being the top one, how are we going to do that in terms of a lot of that was gone over both by the TAC and
Sure.
the executive.
So during the advance, we didn't really have a good idea of what, the recommendations were going to shake out to be. So I think that that's part of it, realizing that obviously growth is going to happen, but there are current needs now on that roadway that need to happen that will obviously impact and improve the future as well. So I think that's part of it. I think, we're beginning to see the value, maybe not the value, but, we have strong partnerships with ADOT and our other agencies. So I think us coming together in this process has also helped to identify that, hey, this is actually coming up kind of higher up list. In terms of the technical part of organizing, I think first that's up to the city and potentially ADOT. Is this a priority project for you? Are you willing to bump a project out 2 years to get this one up in the queue higher? I think it's something that they want to pursue. Then yes, that's a conversation for the group, because obviously we can amend our recommendations or the strategic grants plan, but really we'd have to have guidance from the city on how they want to move that one forward.
Gotcha.
But Sandra will touch on this in just a second for you as well. Great. Yes.
So I think you partially answered this question as far as how, my question was going to be around what the final deliverable is and how is that used?
Yes.
And I'm thinking just from, you mentioned in lieu, contributions, things like that, obviously going through that entitlement process, you need the study, the standards, the
Sure.
codes to be in place to support the
Yeah.
right-of-way dedication,
Mhm.
what exactly it is that they're contributing in lieu for. So I guess, yeah, my question is just next steps after that. Like, if the city decides that this is not, I don't know what it would be to be fully adopted or ratified or
Yeah.
whatever the correct term is, what are the current, I guess, entitlements or expectations along that corridor? Are they just based on standard ADOT guidelines or city guidelines for arterials?
That sounds like a whole nother project. Yeah, this conversation with the PAG and working through this, I think helped us to realize a few of these opportunities that could arise, especially, with in lieu, but we also understand that we are not the experts in the room on that. And this group can't make those kinds of decisions or pursue those things. So, ultimately, what we'd like to know is how the city would like to use this. If there's interest in looking at those things, or maybe they're coming through other planning processes. I'm not sure. I'll look at Dave. I think you had something to add there.
Sure. I think it's a very good question, and I think we can do a little exploration into that. I think it was Stephanie Santana, made the point about Timber Sky and Live, and some of the improvements there were really per ADOT arterial requirements, not necessarily strong. Well, I should say not necessarily TIA outputs, but just meeting those standards. As far as the use of the document, it's kind of revelatory. As if the city decides to pursue 30% plans, I would like to think this will be very useful in scoping in terms of really clarifying some of the issues that have been identified that really need a deeper dive. One of the things not mentioned relative to the Foots Trail there was some discussion about, well, maybe an initial offering should be on the north side for a variety of reasons. There's existing demand and such. Maybe it's more constructible. Those questions, we, at this level and with the, I'll just say a lack of engineering skills that we brought to this, were hard to decipher. Similarly, I think what we've revealed is, roundabouts on their face have advantages, safety and delay that we know about. But we're seeing that there's sufficient traffic and influence from the Milton 66 corridor that we could create some real problems for Railroad Springs and Northwestern, that perhaps signals actually work better for the entirety of the corridor. Again, we just didn't have the budget to analyze that, so that kind of work needs to be done. So again, I think this really is useful in identifying the scope of a 30% plan set that needs to happen should the city pursue that. So.
But I guess it remains to be seen whether or not it would be a document that can be used during that entitlement process to either require dedication of right of way or edge improvements. Thank you.
Then, I don't mean to put you on the spot if you're not ready to answer this question. Sam, you're not ready to answer this question, but how does the city feel about elevating this project over the 180 project? I know you guys have funding set aside for this one. 180 doesn't have any funding set aside for it. And then I guess the question would be the same for ADOT. How would you guys feel on elevating this project over the 180 project?
Yeah, without talking with Jeff and other staff, I would say probably continue with the 180 for now, but that could change. One thing that I did want to bring up is we did get an application in for the, it's called Starlight Trails, that 521 acres. So they did make a submittal. I'm just looking at it here. Proposed development could likely generate 18,000 trips per hour during the higher generating PM peak hour.
1,800?
Or I'm sorry, 1,800. That's it.
Just watching.
Yeah. Sorry.
The county fair?
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, they're gonna be studying some stuff on West Route 66, so.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair, I think part of this elevation of this project, coming out of the PAG, the PAG, many members of the PAG are unfamiliar with the processes that we've been through in terms of the P2P and strategic grants. And so, I think they're just advocating, they're seeing the need, seeing the urgency as we have this better defined project. And basically say, let's put it back into the hopper consideration as opposed to saying this is the number one. So I just wanted to state that, clarify the context in which that recommendation is being made.
I think it's important for us to be able to stay flexible, but also stay focused on project priorities. When there becomes opportunities, if there's funding somewhere, if we have funding and ability to match another funding, I think it's important to be able to be flexible to kind of change some of our priorities. But I also in the same breath say it's pretty important to stay focused on identified priorities.
And down on the
But this project, I think, is pretty unique where the city has funding for it, which can be really leveraged to bring in additional funding, which I don't think any of our other projects in the region really have that ability right now. I think that's something that as a TAC, and hopefully our executive board also realizes and understands that the ability to bring money to a project is huge.
Well, appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, may I proceed with?
Yeah, sorry.
Tell me when to go.
Oh, Mandia, this is Ann with Mountain Line. Sorry, I jumped on a couple of minutes ago. We had our strategic advance, our board meeting today. I just want to reiterate what Nate Reisner was saying. I do sit on the PAG, and I believe Nate, you do as well. But I just want to reiterate that was, I think, my shared feedback during PAG was, yeah, to not lose the opportunity with the funding to have it be reconsidered as a priority. So just wanted to kind of give a head nod to Nate's comment. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, hi. Okay, today I will talk about the RTAC bill, and today we are asking the TAC to recommend that the board adopt a couple suggested projects that I'll talk about in a minute. Next slide, please. So the RTAC bill, what is it? So the Rural Transportation Advocacy Council is a lobbying body that represents 11 COGs and MPOs. There is a new MPO this year, Bullhead City, and it's the newest addition. And why that matters is because the RTAC bill is meant to be kind of a power in numbers trying to get our rural projects funded through a state appropriation. And all 11 COGs and MPOs are allocated funding by population. So the bill amount stays relatively static, and then you add another MPO and it dilutes the funding just a little bit. In our case, it diluted our funding by about $272,000. So the entire bill is $480 million, and the MetroPlan region has just over 26 million. This process of nominating projects to go on the RTAC bill mirrors the legislative process. It's not a grant, it's a real organized way to request an appropriation. Nominating projects on the RTAC bill, it doesn't stop there. So either a jurisdiction or a transit system or anybody who's the project lead has to advocate for their project on Capitol Hill, in addition to nominating it on the RTAC bill. It is a long game. Suitable projects to nominate on the RTAC bill, they have to be shovel ready. They have to illustrate partnership. And also, if the project is located on the statewide roadway system, that is also a plus. Next slide, please. So we are trying to be proactive in trying to do a 2026 call for projects because in October, the Arizona Rural Transportation Policy Summit, that's where folks will get a chance to get FaceTime with legislators to really educate them about their RTAC bill projects. We are trying to get a board approval by June 5th for FY 2026 RTAC projects. Next slide, please. So here's our discussion. So many of you were at the advance, and we selected the US 180 corridor wide improvements as our #1 project. MetroPlan is suggesting that we use the $26 million in the following ways: to fund US 180 corridor improvements and for West Route 66. So why? Both of these roadways are owned by ADOT, so the state support is more likely. They're both multi-jurisdictional projects. The city of Flagstaff, in all of its amazing generosity, is kicking down quite a bit of money for, as Mandia pointed out, for West Route 66. Woo! And then for the 180, I just learned something awesome. So the 180 corridor improvements, it's a lot of improvements. It's no build plus spot improvements, but something that the city is working on are missing sidewalks and 3 crossings. They're applying for planning monies through the Transportation Alternatives Grant, and they are also ready to match construction at $717,000. So combine their match for TA plus the match for construction, they are kicking down approximately $750,000 for US 180. Both of the projects are located on the high injury network, meaning any intervention we make will be safety oriented. And of course, as I mentioned, US 180 was selected as the top project. Lastly, both projects meet our strategic objectives to maximize funds and deliver plans that meet partner and community needs. Like the West Route 66 operational assessment is well on its way to becoming a plan, and we really want to use all of that good work to make projects happen. Next slide, please. So were you gonna say so? Okay, so so the MetroPlan recommendation is to recommend US 180 and West Route 66 for the RTAC bill. Alternative approaches are, which you guys can advise us on, use the $26 million in different ways, or keep US 180 for 8 million and split out 18 million in other ways. So each partner gets 6 million to nominate a project of their choosing. And so now I want to open it up for discussion. Do you agree with our recommendation for US 180 and Route 66, or do you want to do something different?
So my biggest concern is our project falls off the Burris Lane one, US 89 roundabout project falls off of the RTAC list that.
With our recommendation,
With your
yeah.
recommendation.
And so are you like, I want to bring back the Burris intersection?
Right,
Okay,
How much is that one?
like 6 million.
I think so.
6 million-ish. Okay.
Yeah, okay, so US
And
80.
we have, the city has the Lone Tree Overpass for this year's RTAC project.
That's the one you want to nominate?
Well, I'm just saying it's for 25.
Sure, yes. So last year, thank you for bringing that up. Last year, we nominated the Lone Tree Overpass and corridor improvements, the US 89 in Burris, either a signal or a roundabout. And then Mountain Line had a couple projects for match for their maintenance bays and for purchasing 4 additional buses. So that's what we nominated last year.
And when does that decision get made? Is it already done? Or, I know there was some meetings recently.
So the state legislature has been going through their budget appropriations, and there's a few pieces of information floating around. The first one was that each state legislator got $10 million to play with to nominate to use of their choosing. And then there was the information that was like, oh no, now we don't have money, but now we do. So the short answer is, I am not sure. This is absolutely a long game. And, the RTAC bill, I don't know, and we were talking about the history of MetroPlan RTAC bills, and I don't think none of our projects have been funded within the last however long.
If I could follow up.
Sure.
Chair. So the projects that were just mentioned, Lone Tree, Burris,
Mm-hmm.
that are currently, if they're not funded, how do those 3 compare priority wise? I'm sorry, coming back from vacation, so I'm a little behind on some of these conversations. How do those rank priority wise to 180 and 66?
The US 89 and Burris project was number 7 at the advance. So it was at the bottom, it was in the top group at the bottom. That was the tail end of our conversation in February, back when we had it at ADOT. And then Lone Tree did not make it.
Was it on there even?
Is it up for
I
consideration?
don't think it was.
I don't think, it's not an ADOT owned roadway, is it?
Well, we connect data. The issue, I mean, I'm just conversation wise, so the cost increases in the Lone Tree Overpass has us pulling funding from a bunch of other projects to pay for it.
Okay.
So we're like dwindling out Prop 419 to help pay for
The overpass.
the overpass. So
Gotcha.
that's just why I'm throwing it out there.
The Lone Tree project, so there's a few things going on here. So we're talking about all these acronyms, P2P, SGP. P2P is ADOT's process to nominate ADOT owned roadways into the 5-year construction program. Lone Tree was in the hopper, but in terms of scoring it against our internal rubric of like safety, citation and plans, it didn't make the top 16.
For the P2P process.
Correct.
But now we are talking about the RTAC process.
Yes, we are
today.
and
Just
there
to be
is no
clear.
formal score, like, I didn't make a scoring rubric for RTAC. So this is a subjective I didn't like weight them
Yeah.
or put them through any kind of scoring or ranking. I did not do that.
Yeah, so FY '24, we had, Lone Tree for our TAC project and didn't get anything. It's in there for FY '25, we don't know yet.
Correct.
I'm just curious, like, if we don't get anything and you put it in there for FY '26 or a portion of it, does it, there's them seeing it?
Does
3
that
years-
carry weight?
Yeah,
It might, but what carries the most weight is when elected officials or like leadership for jurisdictions goes to the state capitol and is like, hey, hey, Senator Kelly, hey, Senator Gallego, like, so that I talked about that additional advocacy because what we do on the MetroPlan side is we collect project information, we make beautiful one pager, we put it in the booklet, we go to the summit, we talk about it, but there's gotta be like extra work.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was recently, there was a group that went down.
To DC?
Well.
No, this is not.
Oh,
DC.
duh,
so-
sorry, we're
State,
talking state, we're talking state, let me retract
Yeah.
that, state
Yeah,
only.
we had a group go to DC too.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
separate
we
and distinct.
did
Thank you.
have a-
And so what I'm hearing from you, Paul, is that
I don't know. that-
Lone Tree, we don't
Yeah.
know, we don't know what the outcome for Lone Tree
Yeah.
is. If it doesn't get funding, it's going to remain a priority over 180, would be your guess?
Gonna assume that, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
Does 180 carry more weight than Lone Tree? Because it is a state highway, it's on the high injury network.
Paul, when you say carry more weight, with whom?
With,
The
what,
state?
yeah, when you're talking to the legislature. You
That's a
know,
really good question. It's a really good question. Because like for P2P, like if I had made a scoring rubric for RTAC, this conversation might be a little bit easier. And that's actually a really good idea for next year's advance. So yeah, that is a discussion question, like what's more important to y'all? The US 180 corridor, Lone Tree? So are we leaning toward these other alternatives?
I personally would lean towards the splitting the money because I like to see everybody get something. That's my personal
Sure,
take on things.
yeah.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit, although our project would fall off of here. In our strategic advance, we identified 180 as being our region's priority to go for funding for it.
For the P2P, through the state process, not necessarily overall.
If we didn't identify that as overall, then I think we should identify it as a single project overall and put efforts towards getting that project and not shotgunning project here, project there, project there.
So Chair Reisner, you're suggesting to take the monies and dedicate it to one project? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
one priority project for the region.
Okay.
I wanna follow up on that. just
So I
make
think
sure
we have,
we're
what did you
clear.
say, we have points, how much money did we have?
26.
Yeah, I don't think we have a project that big. Well, we could use it, but.
Well, isn't Lone Tree a monster? Isn't it
Well,
like?
it is,
Yeah.
you could throw it all
You
towards.
throw a
Lone
bunch of money
Tree.
at it.
Yeah, it's like 140 million now.
So then what Chair Reisner is saying is like the dedicating that toward a chosen priority that we've already done work to prioritize. 180. So we got Lone Tree, we got 180. Jeremy?
Well, I guess I was just gonna ask for clarification. The chair's thoughts was that we just, because obviously we're conflating a bunch of different things, P2P, RTAC, different approaches. But my interpretation of your shotgun was that we focus from a priority standpoint on a or two or a limited number of projects,
Right.
period, regardless of the process that are being targeted.
Have a more unified priority.
Correct.
Have a more unified priority, unified voice from everybody within the region going after a single project. Again, I think there's some flexibility we need to have, like if funding opportunity comes that's specifically for a specific type of project, or like on the Route 66 with the city having $10 million match. For that, I think that's pretty big, but identifying an actual priority for the region and going after that one singular priority. I mean, that's how that 4th Street Bridge got done, as we identified that as the priority for the region, and Audra was able to work her ends on it, and then we had a bunch of people from MPO and then also from the city and they were able to go to legislatures and talk about that, and there was a bunch of pressure points that got pushed to move money into that Fourth Street Bridge.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask a question real quick. So TAC schedule, we don't have another meeting until September, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what is again, the deadline for getting an RTAC list put together?
Like October-ish, like early October.
So we would have to turn things around pretty hard and fast
After summer recess.
after summer recess.
That's true.
But it sounds like there's a lot more discussion to take place surrounding priorities and a little more information to gather. I'm personally a little concerned about, the city and county priorities both. Since we don't know what's going to happen with them, should they remain RTAC priorities or be supplanted by these two new suggestions? And I'm sorry that Kate's not here to help elucidate or illuminate on that a bit more, but let's see if we can't put together a strategy to bring this across the finish line real fast at September and early October, if that still meets the deadline.
Okay, sure. And not to get too into the weeds, but would we do like an internal scoring rubric, taking into account values, priorities, safety, et cetera, much like kind of mimicking P2P, run the projects through that and then be like, hey, this is what came out as a priority? Is that what you're requesting, Chair?
I think, well, I'm sorry.
Or both of you, either of you? I mean, not like you, I'm not like, tell me how to do my job at all, but just like, would we come up with yet another scoring rubric? Or, do you know what I mean, Dave? I'm a little.
I don't think it needs to be another scoring rubric, but I think that we do need to sit down and have some pretty hefty conversations about what the actual needs are.
Yeah, I
in
mean-
terms of, because we have existing projects with funding gaps.
Yeah, to me, it depends on what happens with this year's funding, right? If we somehow got some money for Lone Tree through our TAC, it'd be great. When we would probably be prioritizing that for next year then.
Yes, my suggestion would just be, however that ranking comes together, that we identify the potential funding opportunities that go with each one of those, because different projects are going to be eligible for different things, right? Burris Lane might be, I don't remember how it calced out, but HSIP might be an option there. There's going to be different options for each one of these projects, for lack of a better term. And, that may help guide us as far as how strategically we want to approach opportunities.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I was just kind of thinking like part of our strategic grants process was we wanted to assure that our members that every project is a good project. But however, having said that, they don't all fit federal discretionary grants, right? It may be a perfectly good project, but it's not safety and sustainability oriented. It's not connecting communities, or it doesn't follow the theme of the federal discretionary program. We're in a bit of a funky spot right now because we're kind of waiting and seeing what the federal administration is doing, what their new merit criteria will be, what the new themes of the federal discretionary programs will look like. So then are we suggesting that we table this and we do a little more discussion on the needs, the projects, all their funding opportunities, and then come back? Is that what we're suggesting?
I think so, because to me, I think there's too many questions for the TAC to come up with a solid recommendation to the board.
Okay.
Especially with these discretionary type projects, I think from a discretionary funding, we have to be unified as a region and say, this is the project that we all want to move forward. Grants are not every project, like you said, is going to fit under every single grant. So that's where you've done a great job of identifying what projects for which grants. When we're asking for discretionary funds from legislatures, I think it's pretty important that we all be unified in voice and saying this is the project that we want from a regional standpoint.
Okay. Thanks. Dave, do you have any closing remarks? So we are.
No, it's a really, really good discussion, I think. Mr. Chair, I think maybe a motion to table would be.
Well, and then, you know, the West Route 66, Highway 180 and your intersection hub shovel ready, aren't really like shovel ready. Not at all.
US 180 has some like warrant explorations to be done, but the US 180 corridor master plan recommends like a no build alternative plus spot improvements. So there are some things that could be done, like for how the city is doing missing sidewalks and the 3 crossings. So I don't want to say that none of it's shovel ready. Some of it is, and some of it isn't.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Sort of shovel ready generally means there's some level of engineering that
There's a
is
set
being
of plans,
done.
there's a set of plans ready to
And,
go.
yeah, ready to go. And even though there's the corridor master plan, it's not an engineering plan set. So it falls.
It's like we're at 60%, 60% design with these. We're gonna finish the design within a couple months and we're ready to go.
That's shovel ready, right?
Yeah.
And we're not there with
US 80 will
180
have,
or 66.
180 will have 30% design plan, so, by November. Through HSIP, they're doing a PA, which takes stuff to 30%. design.
89 Burris.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Okay, I was like.
Explain.
Thank you.
This is news to me, okay.
Oh my God, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
All right.
The county working.
So, again, Mr. Chair, I think a motion to table.
Okay. Can I get a motion from the TAC to table hold on, I need to go back to my agenda here, sorry.
A quick question too, what discussions are we allowed to have offline with?
As long as we're not in a quorum, we're fine.
I figured.
We just can't, we can't do the serial voting or anything like that behind scenes, but we can get all the salient
Yeah, because
information.
to me, it sounds like, you know, Lone Tree is obviously shovel ready, well, the overpass part, because we just did the overpass portion, right? That really hasn't started construction yet. It's shovel ready. We're dealing with demoing the Arizona materials and a couple of final easements. And it sounds like your roundabout's gonna get close. Right?
Yeah.
And that would be the 26 million, those 2 projects.
So the tentative, something for consideration is the US 89 and Burris and the Lone Tree.
Yeah.
For this discussion, this tabling. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Which would almost be exact as a 25 request in RTAC. But then RTAC this year, we may get funding for it.
I get it, right?
I get it, you might not. Yeah.
Right.
I would lean towards not.
So can I get a recommendation from the TAC to table the adoption of any RTAC project? Future meeting? Are we gonna have to call a special meeting? Can we do that? Or will we have another meeting before the June?
It would be possible to call a special meeting if we need to, and we can have that conversation in-house to see if we would advise that. But,
But in terms of formal meetings, this is the last TAC meeting before summer recess. But we're absolutely gonna address this.
Okay.
so still looking for a motion to table.
I'll make a motion that we table this discussion point.
Thanks.
I'll second.
All in favor of motion or tabling item 3 of the agenda for the recommendation for the RTAC bill, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, we have some guest speakers. Our second guest has arrived, and would suggest we reorder the agenda.
Yeah.
To accommodate them.
Let's do so. Which one do we want to go first with?
The land availability.
Yep, and Tiffany will be kicking us off.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So should I just come up here? Or do you want me to shout at you from above? Hi, I'm Tiffany Antal. I'm the zoning code manager for the city of Flagstaff, and I have the overwhelming pleasure to talk to you about our land availability site suitability study and code analysis project. Right now, we are probably at about the second phase of our code analysis project, which is our code concepts report. A lot of people right now have thought that we're really, code concepts means we've actually got code ideas written out, and that's really not where we are. It's highlighting high-level ideas that we might then write code for if we like where those high-level ideas are going. If you could move to the, yep, perfect. So the point of this code analysis project or review is really with our housing and climate goals in mind. Thrown up on the screen is a reiteration of our primary 10-year housing plan goals, which is to impact at least 6,000 low to moderate income Flagstaff residents through a combination of unit creation and subsidy provision, and then create or preserve about 8,000 housing units by 2031. If you're interested on how we're achieving these goals, all of these numbers are vetted out on our housing group's website. So they can show you how and where we are in terms of meeting these goals. And so far, we definitely are on track for achieving that 8,000 by 2031. It seems like an overwhelming big number, but we may get there or get close. Next up is the carbon neutrality plan, which has three primary goals: achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. We are also super close to achieving that goal. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Through a 44% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Prepare Flagstaff's community systems and resources to be more resilient to climate change impacts, and address climate change in a manner that prioritizes the most impacted, ensures the costs and benefits of climate adaptation and mitigation are equitably distributed. So equity is highly included in that topic. So the land availability and site suitability study examined the suitability of basically our available land supply. It did look out beyond the boundaries of just the city of Flagstaff. We did just want to look overall at the region in terms of what is that available land supply out there, and what could be barriers to housing development with that land available, with the land that's available. There are sites that are infill, there are greenfield sites identified. It's worth a look. This the land availability and site suitability study is 95% complete at this point. It is available on our website. It's definitely an interesting read. And it goes through what the pros and cons are of sort of each site that is out there identified in terms of available land supply. The code analysis project is really meant to evaluate our development codes and processes to identify areas of improvement towards meeting those housing and climate goals. So the code diagnostic report, which is complete and is on our website, was something we reached out to local stakeholders, developers, engineers, planners, to ask what are the barriers that you face when dealing with our development codes and processes. So what we have is a reflection of really people who utilize our codes on a daily basis and what they're experiencing. The barriers are things like our density ranges, our resource protection overlay, some of our street standard requirements, the fact that we can't allow for on-street parking because of our snow ordinance. So these are some of the things that have come up and are identified in the barriers report and are also then forwarded on as part of the conversation in the code concepts of, do we want to pursue these further with actual code changes? So we are at that code concepts right now. We have been out and about circulating, and we've done a series of presentations. You're getting the short, sweet snippet, because otherwise I will bore you for hours in the details of craziness. But we have done multiple presentations. If you're interested, it's worth a look at the document. But there are presentations you can go back and watch in more detail so that you can see the decision points we're trying to get to. Once we know how to answer these decision points for our consultant, we'll move to that last final step, which are the actual code recommendations. So the future codes we want to update. At this point in time, the vast majority of the code concepts is focused on the zoning code. Even though the code diagnostic report looked at engineering, looked at our building codes and other things. We know we're also in the process of our every 6-year, 8-year building code update. So a lot of work will also be going into that. So there's a lot of things that are already happening, and we're just trying to group together how those things might happen. But so for the most part, those code concepts, other than street width design and snow, those are the two that fall outside of the zoning code at this point. So next slide. So here is our project website. It has all of those fun studies. If you have questions, if you want us to spend more time with you, we're all here for you. This is a combined work team project that includes our sustainability division and our housing division. And of course, Mountain Lion is involved in this project as well because they have some awesome feedback of ways in which they could see us do or handle our codes in a way that would eliminate barriers for them as well. So coming soon, there are some additional public outreach. And like I said, if there are links to meetings you'd like me to provide you with, where you can hear us all in detail give this presentation, it's fantastic. We do have, it's not a town hall, and it's actually called a community conversation, and I actually believe the date is June 13th now. It's Friday the 13th. Yeah, we decided to move away from town hall. If you're interested in attending, let us know. We are hoping to engage and really drill down on the way that this code concept plan breaks out different sort of scenarios, ways in which we can focus code changes to work for us. Those scenarios really wrap around whether we want to work hard towards incentivizing more. We know that our incentives aren't sweet enough to sweeten the pot to get what we really want. They're not completely broken. They're working okay, but we could do a lot better. There is ways in which we can allow more development by right and still keep incentives. There are ways in which we can include more of our sustainability features as requirements and offsite with by right allowances. I will tell you the by right allowances are two things. They're increasing density within the broad range of all of our residential zoning districts and where we allow residential, which it does include commercial. And the second is reducing parking. So those are the two big ticket items that we found that financially or economically move the needle towards those two goals. And there are a whole series of economic sort of reviews of how the code changes could potentially move that needle one way or the other, if you're interested as well. So with that, public outreach. This is our public outreach. We're doing this. We're going around. If this is the first time you're seeing this, I'm so happy for you. And if this is the 8th time you're seeing it, I'm sorry. But we are hoping to resolve those decision points. We would like so much to get to our formal code recommendations, and we would really like to start prepping these code amendments by next year. I will tell you that there is work happening in the interim. And if you're ever interested, all of those changes are up and going on our website. We have some really cool work going on with our resource protection standards right now and a pilot program that we're going to be working with on our forest resources. It's very exciting, using LiDAR data. Look at me, technology. I'm super proud. They're teaching me how to run regression analysis to use LiDAR data to figure out the diameters of trees. Way more than I ever wanted to know ever, but it's the exciting life of me. So with all of that, if you have any questions, we're here to answer them. Busy's also got a really great presentation on the transit component. And yes, sir.
Not a question, but kind of comments. So, The community conversation is on the 13th. It's
Yes.
gonna be at Lowell Observatory.
Yes.
So that's cool if you haven't been to the new facility yet. Well, I was involved in both the last and the cap, but I found the last part, we looked at city-owned, county-owned, privately owned parcels that could be developed. And then we went and looked at, does it have water to it? Does it have sewer to it, gas, electric? So it kind of identified kind of sites that are easily buildable. So that was really interesting.
What about state trust land? Did you look at state trust land?
I believe we did, yeah.
Mr. Chair, just a couple of quick questions. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
So you said the building code revisions are coming up. Did you say you're not, because of that, you're not working on those through this process?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then they go into the 2025 building codes, or I don't know what the number is that it's on.
I always feel like it's behind.
It's always like a little bit behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's competing interests in that too, right? So,
I think it's 24.
sustainability and carbon neutrality would want all these energy efficiency things in a building, but then that makes the building more expensive, typically. So they try to do it so it's like net zero, like require one thing, but maybe lacks on, obviously not safety items, but.
I mean, I think in a dream world, the green building code would be the top end for where they would love to go. And if that's not where they're able to go, there are ways in the zoning code that then maybe we can incentivize net zero buildings.
Okay.
What we want to make sure that we're doing is that we're not pitting affordable housing against the sustainability features. It's always been our,
And then just real quick, you said start next year. Does that start like in July fiscal year or January calendar year?
start next year with actual code amendments. I'd love to say it's January. I'm hoping that it's January, February, at least
Next
we're out.
calendar year.
At least we're out shopping what we're proposing for
Okay.
text amendments. Now, a lot of this, I will just be honest, like a lot of these code amendments, they're gonna be possible. There's a strategy in all of this to avoid Prop 207. And the goal will be to give a lot, to get a lot. So if you sweeten the pot enough, we're less likely to get Prop 207, but there's still the possibility.
Great. Thank you.
Questions, yes. So piggybacking off of Tiffany's, so Mountain Line, I'm Busy Collins, I'm with Mountain Line. So I'll be talking about the transit component. We were so thrilled to partner on this project with the city and really look at transit barriers and then improvements to the code that would help us. So I think one big outcome of the last CAP report showed that improving transit access in Flagstaff is central to achieving housing and carbon neutrality goals. So we're part of the toolkit to address the problem. So, again, removing those barriers really helps us help the city achieve those goals. So the transit component is only being presented to 3 organizations before we go to the, 2 organizations before we go, 3 organizations, sorry, before we go to the community conversation. And that was Mountain Line Board. Now we're at the MetroPlan Technical Board, and then we're going to the Transportation Commission on June 4th, I believe. So that's where the transit items are going to be. And then we'll also be part with the city at the community conversation. So just like Tiffany said, we're using the public feedback to draft those codes, and then coming back with everybody. So I think, don't get too scared about high level things that you're seeing here. I don't think they're scary. It's things that Mountain Line has regularly asked for, with development. So let's move to the next. So yeah, phase 1, phase 2, we're in phase 1. So, here I'm talking about key outcomes. It's divided into 3, major topics. Infill development, compact land use patterns was number 1. So just in plain language, the first 2 bullets is really, we're trying not to make people walk through long, dangerous parking lots. Build the buildings close to the road, great access to transit. Also our housing, let's have direct pedestrian bicycle access from main corridors where transit operates into our neighborhoods, into our commercial areas. So even if we have cul-de-sacs, circuitous neighborhood road network, which we know Flagstaff is great for, let's get some really direct access for ped and bike, since most transit trips start on foot or bike. The next 2 items, higher density housing and access to transit both contribute to overall affordability for households in Flagstaff, and corridor-based density where transit operates today makes transit the easy choice. So that's why those 2 are important. And then the last 2, really just having transit in the conversation with developments sooner is what we're trying to get to. The city's awesome, such a great partner about getting us into the IDS. I always forget what IDS stands for, but the development review, the permitting process. So, you know, we get to request things voluntarily of developers. We're hoping to kind of get more embedded into the city plans and codes. And then that is more of a conversation where it's part of the city conversation with development as they go through that permitting process. And then that increases predictability for developers. You know, we're not coming out of nowhere asking for something. It's like, oh yeah, it's on plan, it's here. And that's what I would expect by identifying this development on this property. The next slide, please. Next topic is sustainable transportation networks and neighborhoods. So again, easy language. We're just trying to get it right from the start. So transit's the easy choice. The TIA, I don't think I have to explain the TIA process to you all, but we're really hoping that transit can be part of that TIA process. So just getting into the city's process again, transit is part of the transportation infrastructure. So let's just look at it holistically. We're not currently in the TIA process. I'm sure most of you know that. And then the last two items. So just getting a free bus pass in somebody's hand is a huge reduction in riding, or a reduction in the barrier to riding transit, you know, not having to deal with fare. So let's get more bulk transit passes into people's hands, get those partnerships going, and then private funding of transit operations. We're always open to partnerships. Mountain Express is a great example of that. So yeah, if there's transit operations that is desired somewhere, but there isn't it's not identified in a Mountain Line's 5-year plan, let's talk, let's see where that actually gets incorporated. And then the last item, last slide, please, is electric mobility. Mountain Line is going electric. We have a zero emission bus transition plan. So part of that includes on-route charging locations. And we're just hoping through this plan to make it predictable for Mountain Line in our permitting process for on-route electric charging locations. And so I think those are all my slides, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
And you can maybe send it out. Do you have what an on-route charging station looks like?
Yeah.
Be interested to see that.
Absolutely. And so we're definitely still internally discussing, do we love pantographs where it's charging from the bus from the top? We love inductive where it's charging from the bottom, less moving parts, less infrastructure. Yeah. But then there's more loss of energy. It's not standardized. So we're definitely still between those two.
Those would be like at the bus stops kind of thing when it pulls
Right.
and stops.
Right now, we're definitely focused on the connection center. So the downtown connection center, the mall connection center. But with service increases and our service expansion, we may need alternative on-road charging locations. We're totally open to that. So yeah, well, that's where that would come.
Any other questions? Thank you, ladies, for coming today.
Thanks for the time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All
Thanks
right,
for letting us stop ahead.
going to item number 4, Northern Arizona University's subrecipient performance review. Dave?
Yeah, just couple quick items. One to talk about how the agreement is working, and then second to talk about how NAU has performed thus far. Agreement is working good to excellent. This is the idea that we can pass money straight through to NAU. They will then basically implement the grant, per this agreement. And things have worked well. Their invoicing is clean. I think there's some improvement we can do on progress reporting. We have yet to close out the first task, but it's going well. As far as the delivery on the transmodeler that you heard referenced in West Route 66, they've been very responsive. I'll hit some lessons learned here in the next slide. But there's been a lot of variability, volatility, if you will, in terms of what we expected from the beginning, what has happened throughout the process. The quality of their work is fair to good. Again, we'll talk about that in a moment. But I think the value that we received is good. As we talked about in West 66, I think there was a lot of unknowns that became a little more known in terms of what we need to be speaking to. So next slide. So what are some of the, lesson, there's more than one lesson. Lessons learned. In retrospect, Transmodeler's new software to both NAU and MetroPlan. When we look at the skill sets in terms of micro simulation, we're dealing with students. Should have been a little more, I think, thoughtful about the complexity of the scope that we introduced and asking them to do. From a scheduling perspective, again, thinking about what we're asking, should have known that there would be some pretty steep learning curves. And so the tasks that we gave them should have been more in line with that and those schedules. And then evaluation criteria in terms of what we're really expecting, what we really need. Again, I think some of this is we're dealing with academics. I don't want to speak pejoratively, but not necessarily consultants. And so I think we could be a little more specific in what we're asking for. So we, recommend that we continue with this subrecipient agreement and relationship with NAU. It goes well beyond just their traffic engineering. Respectively, we could work in the planning department, economics department, even, communications. There's a wide range. And so we think this was a pretty good first effort. Look forward to doing more as funding becomes available. So happy to take any feedback or answer any questions.
Any questions for Dave? All right, thank you. Going on to item number 6, Safe Streets Master Plan update. Dave, want to do that one again?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. The internal scoping, should have updated some of these slides. My bad. We've had a scoping team meeting for several months. We came up with a draft and circulated it to the 30 some odd people who participated in scoping interviews. As of today, we received feedback from about 2/3 of those people, most of it positive. Well, I think all of it positive. Some of it, 3 or 4 were conditional. We asked them to say yes, no, or if only said, if you can make these changes, do so. And I think we're going to be able to accommodate probably 90% of those comments. A lot of them have to do with just clarification items. So we're going to be drafting, amending that draft and then putting out for signatures for that internal scoping document. We have a deliverables document. I think that 70% complete is about right. It's really at the core of a procurement release, but we're still debating. Debate's probably a good word. Whether we would go with a request for proposals or a request for a statement of qualifications. We would need to flesh out the deliverables document for an RFP. It's a great reference document, for an RFQ if we decide to go that direction. So we're going to continue to work on that. We have a meeting coming up this Friday. If I were a betting man, I would not put the odds in our favor of wrapping up the scope this Friday, which means we're not going to hit our deadline of releasing this in May. We moved it from April to May. We will probably, hopefully wrap up in early June. Really proud of the work that the scoping team has done. A lot of perseverance there. I think it's really coming into focus, getting a lot of good interest. 22 firms, several of whom would make a good prime on the project, and a pretty diverse array of skill sets represented in those expressing interest. So I'll stop. I don't think I have any more. Oh, here's some major scope features. And I got one more after this. Thank you. Coming straight back from vacation this morning. It was a little tough. So the four components, complete streets guidance, master plan, code and policy revisions. I'll follow up with our previous speakers on, how you can best build on the last cap effort. Really strong emphasis on cost and funding. Was pleased we did get feedback finally from both Christopher Tressler at the county as well as Scott Overton at the city for Public Works. And Scott Overton's comments were largely supportive, but yeah, please pay attention to route transfers. Please pay attention to the cost of maintenance, both of which I think are well representative in both the internal scoping and the deliverables. And then, being sensitive to city, county, our members in terms of how they would adopt it. So a few other things we talked about, RFQ, RFP. The scoping team had recommended that we embed the policy advisor. I think there's strong support that we have good facilitation skills, good policy advice skills. We talked about making that independent. Recommendation is now just make them part of the team, but it's going to be important. We will have oversight structure. It is co-managed between the city and MetroPlan, but we will need an oversight structure. Be multi-jurisdictional review team, and we have a pretty good start on our evaluation criteria. That may change a bit if we go with an RFQ. It's going to be more heavy on qualifications perhaps than on meeting specific tasks. And I've just mentioned the review schedule. I think we can still get this done over the summer during break, depending on how an RFQ might be structured. If we have a single team to negotiate with, it will happen a little bit sooner. If it's receiving proposals from multiple teams, that's going to take a little more review time. But expect at the latest December, we have an award. We're ready to go.
I'll bring this up on Friday too, but with 22 firms being interested in it, I would recommend that we do some type of maximum page count for the proposals.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not 30-page proposals, like 2 of them.
And I think the challenge there is, our deliverables document is already 11 pages. So it's like, well, we have an 11-page deliverables. Can you propose in 15? It could be tough. We will manage the number of pages and put I think a pretty hard limit on it, but it's probably because there's 4 components to this, each of which could be a separate 20-page proposal. I don't think we want to go to 80 pages, but but we will. It'll be bigger than normal, I think.
Throw them all into ChatGPT and have it rank it for me.
I'll do that with our tech.
I'm not willing to serve on your committee.
I will delegate. some stuff.
You're good at reading, right, Charlie? Okay, thanks, Dave. Any other questions or discussion for Dave? All right, moving on to item number 7, MetroPlan happenings.
Discussion only. Staff transitions. We have a couple of heartbreaking departures.
What?
Yeah.
What the heck?
So, Sandra, I don't know if you want to address the group. Sorry, I didn't ask about this earlier, but put you on the spot.
Well, let's see. So I worked here for 2.5 years. It's been amazing. I've had a great time. Lots of success winning grants. as you all know, I do not have a transportation background. And I did, like I turned 47 this year and I'm like, what am I gonna do with my one wild and precious life? And although I appreciate planning very much, a planner I am not. So I'm gonna go off and do different stuff. I'm still gonna live in Flagstaff, so you'll see me around town. But yeah, I just think you guys are all amazing and I've learned so much. And I
For
think
your help and getting grants.
You have been amazing.
Thank you.
Yes,
it.
Sandra, awesome. So much enthusiasm to sometimes a very dry topic.
Sometimes. Yeah, so June 16th
yeah.
will be
Oh, wow.
her last day. And then Aubrey Flores is been our Montoya fellow,
Oh.
yeah,
No, AmeriCorps.
AmeriCorps fellow, sorry. It's like, that's not quite right. AmeriCorps fellow. And when is her last day?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And she's really brought us kicking and screaming into the digital age, into social media, and hopefully we can keep up the good work that she has started. And then, you want to add anything, Kim?
He's left me instructions on how to produce social media. She really did. I'm not lying. I'm her intern. Don't know if I passed. Yeah, she's gonna give me a grade tomorrow. No, she's been really great and she's really trying to get a planning job in Fort Collins. So, yeah.
It's like what just opened up here in Flagstaff.
She doesn't want to stay here. I know. She doesn't want to stay here. She wants to go to Fort Collins.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And, unfortunately, I believe the AmeriCorps program has been discontinued.
Her portion, yes, not all of it,
Okay,
but
so
her portion, yes.
we may be able to tap into another vein there and maybe get some more funding. We'll see. As far as welcomes, we'll skip to Melanie and then come back to Tammy. We have a new Montoya fellow. Melanie Nagel is replacing Ty. She is traveling and starts when?
On the 2nd, June 2nd.
And there is a whiteboard list
It's going for her.
growing in her absence. I don't know if she's had the misfortune of seeing that, hopefully not, so she doesn't have to worry about it while she's traveling. And then really like to welcome Tammy. You want to pronounce your last name for everybody?
Suho Vieco.
Suho
Suho Vieco.
Vieco. Suho Vieco. A excellent addition to this team. I think the Mountain Lion welcome to the staff said her skill sets are immeasurable.
That was a, yeah.
So she's got a lot to live up to, but we have been searching for a business manager for months and months and months. But it was worth the search. So, hey, Tammy, you want to give a little bit of background?
I've lived in Flagstaff since 2001. I came to Flagstaff having been in the hospitality industry and continued in that for just a little bit of time. I joined the county, Coconino County, in 2007 as a temp and worked there for the last 18 years. And then decided a month ago that I needed to do something different and opened up the job posting on a Sunday afternoon and applied, and everything just started happening. So I'm really glad to be here. I'm looking forward to this next chapter, and I get to learn a lot about transit, which I don't know a whole lot about.
And it's not nearly as dry as Ann suggested. It's very exciting work. Okay. Other happenings. So welcome to Tammy. The Downtown Connection Center, June 9th, 216 West Phoenix. I've already started boxing my stuff up, so getting ready to jump over there. It's a really, really beautiful building. There was an excellent article in EIN Engineering, something, Great article, great video. It's such a cool building, more cool than I ever knew. Car Free First Friday. Kudos to Kim and Mandia for getting that off the ground. Kim or Amanda, Kim, you want to shed a little light on what that means?
We taught a lot of people how to do a miniature two-stage left turn at a miniature intersection.
So it's the first Friday in May.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so
A lot of people really enjoyed it. So hopefully we'll have some more of them.
yeah, so that was great. Yeah, there's a lot of people went through that with you guys.
Yeah.
Where was that at? Where you guys holding was that?
They closed Aspen, right in front of Heritage Square.
Okay.
So kids running around, blowing bubbles, having a great time, people shopping. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Music, lots of art vendors.
Yeah, great music, vendor. I mean,
The street closure was spearheaded by ArtX, is that correct?
It was part of ArtX, Creative Flagstaff's ArtX. So they funded the street closure.
Meetings with ADOT. To talk about those priority projects on 180 that we spent so much time talking about today. Dark skies, this is, continued conversations about standards and studies. Get that off the ground. And then their long-range transportation plan, I guess, is being renewed. Do you want to speak to, can you speak to that? Will you please speak to that?
Speak a little to that.
Okay.
So that's actually currently underway.
Okay.
It actually should be releasing for RFP hopefully in the next few weeks or so. Yeah, lots of work has been going into that. The scope is pretty much wrapped up and Jason is actually the PM on that, so more to come. Any direct questions, you can reach out to him. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Can I add one thing that we just celebrated a year of the Cheshire mural, street mural, so I just wanted to shout that out because it held up really well. So it was the first one of its kind in Flagstaff, so it's been around for a year and it still looks great.
Cool. It's been a year already. Wow.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yes.
Very cool. Okay. Mr. Chair.
All right, moving on to closing business items from the TAC. Does anybody have any items? Go ahead, sir.
Just informational update from ADOT. As you know, we currently have a vacancy at the district administrator position for North Central. That recruitment is underway. I think they're hoping to have that filled sometime next month, sometime in June. So we'll keep everyone posted on that. In the interim, myself and Stephen Craver, the other assistant district engineer, are kind of handling things by our geographical designations. We're split up as far as how our assignments are.
Yeah.
So I'll continue to be involved with things related to Flagstaff. So stay tuned.
Cool. Another thing I want to bring up that ADOT has out is you guys' 5-year transportation plan, the draft 5-year transportation plan. I haven't taken a look at that, do that. I did see that there's a pretty cool project of widening of I-40 between I-17 and Country Club. So that's pretty cool.
It made it this far.
This made it this far. Yep, there's a final tentative review June 5th, which is a virtual meeting by state board, and then June 20th, the state transportation board will meet in Payson for that final adoption.
Resurfacing of Route 66 is in there.
Pavement press job.
The pavement press, and that's already in the
It's
five.
already in the 5-year plan. Okay. It was already in. It's not something new.
Correct. So that's pretty cool to kind of show you how P2P works. That widening project was the district's top priority when I was at the district. And it has been there for quite a long time and is one of the top 10 projects in the state for quite a while. And now it's finally one of the top ones that's moving forward.
How many years do you think it's been? Like,
Well,
is what
Do you see these hairlines? See these hairlines?
I used to have black hair and hair on top of my head. So, I think they started P2P back in 2017 or 2018.
Okay, so it's a long game.
It's a long game. It's a long game. Yep. But also during that point in time, there was absolutely $0 for expansion. up until the last couple of years where money has been going into some more expansion type projects. And that project being the top of the P2P list, when there was money now for expansion, got to put it into the 5-year plan, which is really cool.
Yeah, there are actually currently a number of, at least for North Central District, a number of cool projects that are in there. So we'll see how this process plays out, but certainly encourage anyone to tune in, pay attention. I don't know if it's open for comment right now.
It is.
Yeah, it's open.
Till May
No, May
25th
23rd.
or 23rd.
5 PM. I think that's this Friday.
Friday. Yeah, Friday.
Friday.
Hey, Dave, this is Ann.
Yeah.
Just one Mountain Line, well, DCC opens to the public June 9th, Monday, the lobby, and come on in and check it out. The other thing is a future agenda item. Can I make a suggestion here for a future agenda item to consider?
Yes, please.
I would love to, so there's everyone's aware of the Lockett Roundabout, the fantastic project that, we're excited to get started, the closures, now there's dual closures, which the city determined that this week, which totally makes sense. The punchline is I was talking with the city project manager for the roundabout and another individual working on Spruce Wash. And our understanding is potentially the city, after those projects are done, they're going to get in there and potentially just do a rebuild of the road, a repaving, a pretty major paving project, which makes sense to kind of just clean everything up. And MetroPlan is working on safe routes to school on those bus stops at Cedar. And those happen to be Mountain Line's pretty much top priority, which we don't have funded. Would love to chat with at least an interagency, at least the city and Mountain Line and MetroPlan about how can we accelerate our planning and design process to catch up so that maybe we could, when the city goes in to do the work on Cedar, we could get in and actually do those major bus stop improvements, because it's probably including a crosswalk there, some location. So doing that all as one project, and just the impacts to the community obviously are pretty big right now, but to get in later in a year or two and then repave, and then Mountain Line or another entity coming in and doing the bus stop work. I mean, it's just, there's a lot. So it's just kind of wondering if we could talk about that with the city to float that balloon. Just kind of wanted to put that out there as a possible discussion item.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and
Thanks.
Public Works has mentioned going in there and doing a mill and overlay, but I don't know anything about the timing yet. I'm actually trying to get that information.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, and I think that's
Yeah,
a lot of it is
I was
coordinate.
trying to tell them, I was suggesting that they need to find like a good, maybe the following summer, or if they got like you can't really pave in the winter, but if you got like a good break in school. Cause we wanna like not mess with that road and
Right.
way more pain.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Closing business item number 2, next scheduled Technical Advisory Committee, September 24th, 2025. And then number 3, adjourn.
We are adjourned. If you would call.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Aye. All right. Sorry.
1 minute late
1
for
minute
the
over.
next meeting.
So close.
Thank you all online.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.